Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Testing. Video volume. Yeah.
Can you hear me, everyone?
I'm not sure. That didn't happen last. The last one we did, you had the volume up.
Okay, they can hear me.
Yeah. Cool.
Hello, Rick, and welcome. Nice to have you joining.
Hey, Peter, how's it going? Hey, Peter, can you hear me okay?
Guys, we will start maybe in a few minutes. We are just waiting for some of the other registered participants. All right, it doesn't seem like some of the participants will be joining, so I think we have to start, and then they can jump on as we go. Are you ready for that, Peter?
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good.
All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to this webinar from ISB Vietnam. My name is Nikki Skovmose, and I will be your MC today, guiding you through the program and keeping us on track. So shortly about myself, my career has taken me through software outsourcing, both in Vietnam, but also from Denmark. The past 7 years, I have been living in Vietnam. Before we move on to today's agenda, I would like to share a little bit about this new webinar series that we are having. And what we are trying to focus on for ISB Vietnam is that in 2026, we will be having a new series of webinars which includes a lot of specific topics related to emerging technologies, but also coming trends and market developments here in Vietnam. So yes, today's agenda will be a short introduction, as I'm doing now, and then I will also introduce our new host speaker. After that, we will take you through a market overview in terms of IT outsourcing trends and overview, especially from the US market. That will lead us to the third part, will be relation to Vietnam as a trusted partner, upcoming and popular destination for especially US companies. Then we will move on to a Q&A section. We have received some questions beforehand from some of the plus 15 participants that have registered through our Google registration form, and we will pick up some of those. And then, of course, we will also open the floor for you guys to start a discussion based on your interest and curiosity. Then lastly, as the MC, I will sum up some of the key takeaways from today's webinar, and then I will be sharing a little bit more about the upcoming webinars that we have planned for the Q1 2026. So yes, now it's my pleasure to introduce our host speaker of today's webinar, Mr. Peter. Mr. Peter has been within outsourcing the past decade here in Vietnam's IT sector, and he has been guiding especially US IT leaders on how they can leverage local tech talent to bridge skill gaps, modernize systems, and scale innovation. So yes, everyone, please welcome Peter. Peter, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. Appreciate that introduction, and welcome to everyone who's joining us today. Wherever you happen to be, it's a pleasure to have you with us. As Nikki pointed out, I am the manager for ISB Vietnam's global markets. That includes the United States, Australia, and the UK, principally. I'm really responsible for three things here. The first one is I work quite closely with our international customers in markets such as the US to ensure they get quality support in their journey with us. Secondly, I work quite closely with CTOs and founders in particular on their requirements and their specifications for ongoing teams so they can hit their KPIs and objectives. And thirdly, I've been educated on Vietnam, not just Vietnam, but ISB, and why partnering with a team here offers a great competitive advantage and why it's such an incredible place to partner. In the past, I've worked with companies such as Thomson Reuters and Adapt, but more recently, I've been privileged to have been here for 10 years. And I've seen the technology sector grow exponentially throughout that time. And so I'm very, very passionate about not just the sector here, but also Vietnamese developers and engineers, because I've seen how impactful they are for US businesses. And I've seen their individual hunger for success and achievement, which is really endearing as well.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Peter. I believe that is super helpful for our participants. And now we will move on to the next part of our webinar. So for this part, I would like to set up the stage shortly. And what we have been receiving much more lately is that we have been talking with a lot of US founders, especially within the tech industry. And the challenge for them today is that they are seeing, of course, not a shortage of talent, because in the US, there are a massive amount of application and developers. But we are starting to see, based on market changes in terms of policies, etc., that founders are looking overseas in terms of finding potentially alternative resources with similar skills, but also the right velocity for the right cost structure. I believe that Peter has much more insight on this part. So Peter, can you share a little bit more about how you see the US landscape today and how IT leaders are responding?
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Nikki. Appreciate it. And it's an interesting topic because, you know, we hear so much about layoffs in the market right now. And so the idea of a skill shortage now and into the future is a bit unusual, but let's get into it. So we've had a number of discussions with founders and CIOs over the past several months, and particularly around future workforce planning, what they're going to do over the coming years. And a number of concerns have come through. If we look at workforce planning on a broad scale, the scale of the challenge was highlighted quite well in a recent survey by Robert Half, the big recruiter, back in June this year. That survey came out with a really interesting statistic, and that was that 76% of US tech leaders say they have existing skill gaps in their department right now. And what's more, 69% of them said that the negative business impact of those skill gaps has accelerated over the past 12 months. So there's a profound impact on them being able to achieve their strategic objectives because they can't quite get the right people. Now, in terms of the areas impacted, 44% of them nominated AI, machine learning, and data science. Probably no prizes for guessing that was number one. 39% mentioned, garden variety IT operations and support. 30% cybersecurity, which is a very, very well established key challenge and driver for CIOs and CTOs. And these challenges were all echoed by McKinsey's AI in the Workplace report from earlier this year. I'd really recommend giving that a read. It's quite interesting. And what they said was, although the pressure to roll out and realize a return on AI investments is pretty significant, the future requirements are uncertain. For example, there's questions that CTOs are asking about, how many AI experts do I need now, next year, the year after? How do I maintain the right balance of skills in my organization? How expensive are these people going to be? How competitive will it be to acquire the right people as well? So there's a number of different aspects to it there. And interestingly, CompTIA just predicted that the IT personnel requirements within the IT sector itself will outstrip overall US employment rate by double between now and 2030. So that's despite the current downsizing that we hear about in the news every day. There is a growing consensus that there is a large candidate supply, yes. However, getting the right people at the right time with the right skills, the right experience to future-proof your organization, that is still a very big challenge. And of course, this mismatch that we have is expensive. You're looking at potentially $300,000 to $400,000, according to some studies, per year that you can lose in delayed product launches, in lost revenue, in your extended recruitment cycles. So you're probably thinking, well, look, how are your peers tackling this? And look, outsourcing, it's been a thing for a very long time. So is nearshoring, which you're probably familiar with. Mortar Intelligence, which was a great report that came out earlier this year, tells us that the US market's projected to increase from 191 billion today to 245 billion in 5 years. Needless to say, I probably don't need to tell our American viewers that the recent policy changes in H-1B visas also have an impact, because you have certain organizations, particularly startups, but also established organizations who relied on filling that skill gap with really well qualified people from abroad. And almost overnight, that became much more difficult. And so, of course, that's another issue. And then, when we look at our enterprise CIOs, they have that data readiness gap, the issue of legacy transformation being incomplete, the issue of poor data hygiene being a legacy as well. And so their AI projects are at risk of not delivering a return. So, once again, they're coming to organizations like us to resolve that as a result of all the above.
Thank you very much, Peter, for this detailed overview of the US IT outsourcing landscape in general terms. I believe that it gave some good short insights into the market size, but also the growth trends for regional hotspots and the shift that we are seeing for global outsourcing patterns. This first section for the market overview will also be a great transition into our next section, related to why Vietnam is becoming a trusted partner for many US companies. And as I mentioned previously, we are starting to receive much more requirements from US founders that want to have more insights and the basic know-how of how to set up, for example, outsourcing teams or finding the right trusted engineering partner. We see like the shift is becoming much more, how can I say, also digitalized, that we receive some, how can I say, potential partnerships and clients through our network that we have been establishing. And I know Peter has a lot of experience in this as well, so he will take you through more about the benefits of Vietnam as a market.
Thanks, Nikki. So I guess I could start off by bringing it back to that niche skills gap that we talked about earlier. How Vietnam's addressing that? We've got 57,000 new tech graduates coming through every year in software engineering, which is quite a high number, taking into account the population size. And this is part of a deliberate national strategy to accelerate the talent pipeline. We have a national AI strategy over here, which is government backed. There are some quite stringent and very deliberate quality standard adoptions within our industry that we need to adhere to as well. So Vietnam has the capability to address this issue of niche skill gaps and workforce planning, and helping founders to be able to scale quickly very well. And on a related note, you may already be familiar with some of the names that are already here in a software development and an R&D capacity. You have Intel, of course, NVIDIA, Apple, Salesforce, Qualcomm, and of course a very broad spectrum of more moderate and smaller entities that are here too. You know, but that provides Vietnam with social proof. It doesn't really answer why Vietnam in enough depth. You know, what are the real benefits for organizations like yourselves? I guess we can break it down into 4 strategic dimensions in terms of benefits. Firstly, financial. Secondly, operational. Thirdly, people. And fourthly, the ecosystem support here. So when we talk about the financial side of things, it's quite an interesting topic, because Vietnam offers one of the strongest value propositions you'll find anywhere. However, you know, if we were to look to India, which of course is a very established player in this area as well, if you look at the absolute bottom end of salaries, you will probably find a better lower end there. However, that's before taking into account other factors such as productivity, stability, communications efficiency, business continuity. Vietnam often wins on these factors. It can often win by 20% across plenty of roles, and that's well established. Here within our own company, we're seeing a growing number of international firms coming in who are looking for that. They're looking for business continuity, stability, productivity. They're looking at, they want the same faces coming through every single week and working at a high capability for them. The operational side of things, quite simply, agile and modern delivery methodologies, they're very deeply embedded in Vietnam's software culture. US firms expect this. US project management expectations and the rapid iteration cycles suit US clients the way we work. You have political stability here. You know, we have a very steady policy environment, a very low risk of disruption, and it's a critical differentiator, because, you know, there are other alternatives that may not be so politically stable, and it is one of Vietnam's core draw cards. Thirdly, people and performance. So we have a very low staff turnover in Vietnam. In Vietnam, the IT sector enjoys about an average of 5 to 6% in terms of annual staff turnover, meaning clients benefit from that continuity I mentioned, having the same faces, the same long-term team, and the accumulated domain knowledge there. So, you know, particularly if you need to move quickly on something, your extended team is ready to go, and they understand you, they understand what's important to you, and they understand your product. Many of our team members here have been with us for 5 years, a number that have exceeded 10 years, and I know 2 people who've been here for 20 years. We've been established in Vietnam for 22 years now, so a huge benefit there. Proactive problem-solving work culture. We have over 55,000 graduates coming through per year, as I mentioned. There's a lot of very hungry, very passionate, very entrepreneurial young professionals here. I've had the pleasure of witnessing them at work for a decade now, and so I can vouch for them personally. And it's a very, very proactive culture to problem-solving as well, so you don't get the opacity which some founders and CTOs are concerned about. And the ecosystem support. Vietnam's government provides really robust development through startup decrees and comprehensive innovation funding. Google themselves have partnered with Vietnam's National Innovation Center here. I believe that was a couple of years ago now that kicked off to strengthen STEM education here, to accelerate local startups. So, you know, there's a number of different factors that come into play here, I guess you could say. Touching back on point number 3, just briefly, and the reason I want to do that is because I often get quizzed on this purely because a lot of US and Australian founders and CTOs I talk to, they're just not familiar with the culture here in Vietnam, particularly the work culture. A good illustration of how people in performance work so well here was during a major project that we undertook relatively recently. It was for a leading Japanese retailer. This retailer has hundreds of locations, a lot of complexity. However, they're quite traditional, and they came to us with some very vague requirements. They weren't quite sure what to do, but they needed to overhaul their labeling system across the board. We were able to take a whole range of very vague requirements and create a complete automated labeling system by our staff taking initiative. You know, without the information being clear, they went ahead and acted as a consultant to the customer, creating proofs of concept from scratch, proposing multiple different solutions backed by data and evidence, steering the client through every decision and every possible scenario as well. And so over 2 years, you know, that delivered a fully automated, scalable solution that resulted in tremendous efficiencies for the client. And, you know, there are many examples where I just don't hear that kind of thing happening from organizations that have chosen to outsource elsewhere. So, you know, it's just a brief example, but I think it really illustrates the proactive creating and consultative engineering culture that we have here. And it's that approach to challenges that attracts US firms so much. And we know US firms value partners that are proactive and who are transparent with that sort of thing.
Great. Thank you, Peter, for that very detailed information and the insights based on our own expertise and experience. I appreciate and believe that we both are, since we are here in Vietnam for so many years now, has seen the growth, how Vietnam has emerged as a strategic destination for tech companies globally, especially from the US industry, offering a unique combination of financial value, operational stability, and highly skilled talent is something that we have heard numerous times when we are talking with people that are looking for new outsourcing markets and destinations. I believe that we have now touched upon some very important areas. Of course, it has been very compromised because our time here for this webinar is quite limited. So I hope the information that we share has been of value for you. But this also leads us to the next point of the section, where we would like to, if people are up for it and are ready to participate in our discussion, we will now open the floor for any questions that you might have. We have allocated a short time for this Q&A section. So if anyone has any questions, please, you can use the raise hand feature in the Google conference, and then we can start a short discussion. I don't see any hands. I see that we are still missing quite a lot of participants. So maybe, Peter, let's jump into some of the questions that we have received from the Google registration form. We received in total 6 questions related to Vietnam as an IT outsourcing market. And the first question is from an Australian company, but they also have a department in the US, and they're currently considering transferring the outsourcing team from the Philippines to Vietnam. They have a concern, or maybe more like a problem statement. They ask, if a US company wants to modernize a legacy system, what is the typical onboarding process with ISB Vietnam? How long does it take before the teams become productive and aligns with time difference, etc.?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Legacy modernization, is for the benefit of the person who gave us the question. Legacy modernization is a very typical reason that CIOs reach out to us. It's an overwhelming mission, has very large staff requirements and data requirements. What we do, onboarding is quite quick, but I will give you a caveat there. It ultimately comes down to the nature of what is required and the structure, and also the model of the team as well. For example, with a one-off project that may run for 6 months with really high ROI stakes for you and a really detailed discovery phase potentially, it may take a little while longer. For a dedicated team, especially one where we have team members that have familiarity with you as a customer, they understand what's under the hood, technically speaking. They act as a very genuine extension of your existing team, and operationally, that is totally seamless and very, very quick.
Thank you very much for that answer, Peter. I will jump directly into another question because maybe that's quite related, and that was one of the first questions that we received on the day we sent out the invitation. That was what level of communication can we expect as a US company in terms of working with developers from Vietnam? How does this compare to other popular offshore destinations?
Yeah, it's a good question. It could probably fall into 2 categories here when we talk about this. Firstly, language, and secondly, the cultural alignment. So anecdotally, I've been told by Americans and Australians, some that we work with here, but also others who I've met through the Australian Chamber of Commerce here, for example, they find the neutral Vietnamese English, or Vinglish, I guess you could call it, generally easier to understand than many other accents in the region, particularly in areas like India or the Philippines, for example. Or Pakistan, for example. I touch upon the Philippines because we all know the Philippines are the gold standard. There's no doubt about that. In terms of communication style, this is a really important point, and this is where I think Vietnam has an edge on everybody else. So Vietnamese communication style, it's rather less nuanced and less indirect and less conflict avoidant than some other well-known alternative destinations. And that's really, really important for Australian clients, and it's really important for our US clients as well. That direct communication aspect when you have offshore staff is critical. And US clients really appreciate that. More broadly, if we talk about, the meshing of the culture, US-Vietnam relations in the modern era is, you may or may not know, very, very strong. The relationship diplomatically and the trade relationship has been undergoing a really positive transformation over the past 10 to 15 years. The American Chamber of Commerce here locally is doing great work to keep that collaboration heading in a really positive direction. As an anecdote, I personally witnessed President Obama's visit in 2016. I was on the street here, and I can promise you the entire city turned out for him. The streets were packed full of people. It would have been at least 4 or 5 million people that came out for it. So the willingness and enthusiasm to engage with Americans and American companies, and the diplomacy and the trade aspect between the two countries is really, really strong, and really good to see.
Great. Thank you, Peter, for that answer. I completely agree with you that the Vietnamese culture is very embracing. I can see that the time is almost up, so maybe I will cut it off here since we need to follow our time schedule. So for that, I believe we can end this short webinar today, and we will be sharing the recording here of the webinar, as we mentioned at the beginning, and you can receive that on email. You are also, of course, welcome to connect with us on LinkedIn or send us any questions that you might have. We hope that the insights that we shared here can give some general insights and more, how can I say, good considerations when you're looking for potential other outsourcing destinations. So yeah, thank you very much. We will be sending out newsletters also regarding to new webinars in this series that will be related to emerging technologies that we see and that we are utilizing here in our company at ISB Vietnam. And in the meantime, yes, please have a great day, and then you will hear from us shortly. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, guys.